what's good, everybody? This is Brant. You're watching the Classic Physique Collective, your home for all things classic physique news, previews, highlights, and more. Podcasts coming soon as well. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe before we start this video. I've got a video regarding Ramon Dino today. He's received a lot of criticism after his 2022 second place Olympia finish regarding his posing. What can Ramon do to fix this before the Arnold Classic, and what can he do to level up in classic physique if he wants to be Mr. Olympia someday? Check it out. Ramon Dino finished second at the 2022 Mr. Olympia in Classic Physique, was also last year's runner-up at the Arnold Classic. He'll be competing here in the Arnold Classic in less than 6 weeks, going for that very first Arnold Classic title, trying to bring it back to Brazil. So why was Ramon receiving so much criticism from the Brazilian fans? So I'm going to read off the story that Ramon posted after this recent criticism that has come from his fellow country people of Brazil. So check it out. Now, I can understand the desire to isolate from everything else and to live only focused on family and true friends who deserve your love and attention. It is so tough to represent your country, to come from nothing, and to give your best for everyone, only to be heavily judged because of some mistakes. People still aren't satisfied. People still think that your effort was not enough. People still think the outcome was sloppy and want so much more from you. But now I realize that it is in my power to cancel all this noise, and I am glad I can listen to God, who tells me to only value the people who truly support me. But I am also not blind to see that the same people who you work so hard, that share the same blood of your nation, can also completely dismiss your journey and your achievements. For them, it's very little or nothing. But what about when the time comes and there is no one else to represent you and to sacrifice so much for you? What are you guys going to do? So those are the rough translations of what Ramon Dino put on his story a little less than a week ago. Ramon is basically speaking to the backlash that he has gotten from the Brazilian fans about his posing. Now, Ramon finished second in the world this year. I think it was a very clear margin between he and Urs Kalaczynski, who came in third place. Ramon was a very clear second here. And while Ramon does not hold the best posing in the world, he by no means is a bad poser. Ramon is a good poser, I would say. In fact, he's not perfect, and a lot of his mandatory and compulsory poses defy typical conventions of posing. So what do I mean by that? There are typical ways and cues that are used to hit poses, and Ramon doesn't necessarily follow all of these typical cues or conventions with posing. However, if you compare him pose for pose with his peers, he matches up very well. And he might not hit the compulsory poses perfectly, but he hits them pretty damn well. And I'll actually be getting to some of these comparisons with he and Urs later this week. Those are for later videos. But Ramon doesn't lose a whole lot of poses to many people. And even if he does hit the pose slightly different, it's not bad at all. I think probably the biggest room for his improvement is just going to be in his individual routines, and particularly with the transitions. So the dynamic poses, you have two types of poses. You have the static poses, which are what you see in callouts. Those are also the compulsory poses, like the front double bicep, the back double bicep, the ab and thigh, things of that nature. Whereas the dynamic poses are the poses that come in between the static poses. Those are your transitions, right? So what Ramon really needs to work on is those transitions, those dynamic poses that you see in the posing routine. And that comes with time and practice. That's not something that can be fixed overnight. And I am very sure that Ramon is going to not only adjust his static poses, but also be working on his dynamic poses. So I think Ramon is set up very well for success in the division, given that he may not even be the best poser right now, but it's enough to get him second place. And another thing that I want to point out is you don't necessarily have to be the greatest poser when you have an impressive physique. You have a greater margin for error when you have a better physique. Why do I say that? The better your physique is, the better you are going to look from all angles. So if your arm or your leg or whatever the body part is, if that's not in the perfect position for the judges to see, if it's slightly out of place, or you might not be contracting the muscle in a proper or optimal way, sometimes you can still get away with it. And I think we see that a little bit with Ramon as well. His physique is so superior and so impressive that he doesn't even have to hit the pose 100% correctly for it to look better than other people. So that's something to note as well. So while I do think the Brazilian fans' criticism, there is a little bit of validity to it, I think you have to take it with a grain of salt. There are a lot of people who are going to criticize you. For every 5,000 people who say something positive about you, there's going to be one person who says something negative. There will always be haters. And I think Ramon is starting to learn this, and he needs to listen more to the people who are close to him and in his inner circle who have his best interest. People like Chris Aceto, his coach. People like his wife. People like Horse, who is his training partner and one of his best friends. I think Ramon needs to listen to them a lot more, tune out the rest, and that's going to get his mind right. A lot of guys really struggle with this in the bodybuilding world. A lot of the battles are mental, and Ramon really needs to work on the psychological aspect if he wants to become Mr. Olympia someday. Will he ever defeat Chris Bumstead? That is, in my opinion, highly unlikely to ever happen, simply because Chris is so much further ahead than his peers, maybe with the exception of Terrence Ruffin, in terms of the mental game. And probably Urs. I think Urs has really, really mastered the mental game early on in his career, which is why he's so damn good. But I think Chris mastered how to manage stress, how to manage the criticism and the fame, and learn how to use that to his advantage. And part of that comes with working with your coach, and this is part of the reason why Chris actually started working with Hani Rambod, is to improve the mental aspect, and this has only stepped his game up further. So I think Ramon, in addition to tuning out the haters, could also benefit from having somebody in his camp who works with him psychologically and helps him adjust mentally to make these necessary changes that allow him to level up, to tune out the unnecessary noise and just focus and become better. So I think Ramon could certainly use a little bit of help on that side of things. But other than that, Ramon is a great bodybuilder. And I truly believe that if he stays in the game long enough, he will be Mr. Olympia someday. I don't think he'll ever beat Chris Bumstead, but given that he's, I believe, a year or two younger than Chris and much newer to bodybuilding, I believe it is within the realm of possibility that after Chris retires, Ramon could win a Classic Physique Olympia or even multiple. So that's just my thoughts on this, guys. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments. Is this criticism of Ramon fair? Do you think the Brazilian fans are being too harsh regarding Ramon's posing? Also, stay tuned for Classic Physique Collective merch. I have this Classic Physique Collective hoodie on. I just made this, as well as some t-shirts. If you guys would want some of these shirts or some hoodies, either shoot me a message on Instagram. You can find me there at CPC Bodybuilding, as well as all my other awesome content covering Classic Physique. Or just comment that you like this hoodie or you want a shirt or something. I'm going to be trying to sell these here before too long. So I want to thank you guys all for watching. and make sure you keep it classic. Take it easy, y'all.